What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American living in Ghana. I'm in Sierra Leone right now. And if you want to know what it's like to talk to the top CEOs, the brightest and best minds in Ghana, then this is the video for you. All right. We are live. We're live on Instagram. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. And I just want to start by apologizing to everyone for last week's mishap. Ran out of data. A true West African challenge. If you've been here, then you know what I mean. But those of you who are joining from Instagram Live, if you want to see our guests live, I just pinned the link to the YouTube Live, so you can just click on that link to join us on YouTube. We are going to basically redo the live that we attempted to do last week. Our guest was gracious enough to rejoin us again, and so we'll have a conversation with Adrian of the Sound of Accra Podcast in a moment. But before we do get into that, I want to do some housekeeping. But before I even do that, let me know that you can hear me. Can you guys send me a thumbs up? Can I get a thumbs up on Instagram? Can I get a thumbs up on YouTube so I know you guys can hear me? Give me a thumbs up so I know you can hear me. And by the way, those of you who are joining from Instagram, there's a link pinned there and that you can go and watch live on YouTube so that you can see our guest. Give me a thumbs up so I know you can hear me. I see back in town, is it Inik? Wynick? Okay. Crown of Joseph says thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right, great. On YouTube, can you guys hear me on YouTube? Let me know that you guys can hear me on YouTube. All right, so we'll be bringing our guest on in a moment, but before we do, let me start with a little bit of housekeeping. Those of you who are unfamiliar with who I am, my name again is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I am a Sierra Leonean American. I do live in Ghana right now. I am in Sierra Leone, as I mentioned a little earlier. I go back and forth between Ghana and Sierra Leone. I'm building a house in Sierra Leone as we speak. And so that house building process is being documented. You'll see that in my weekly vlogs. And that also determines how long I stay in Sierra Leone. It's really all based on how much work gets done on the house while I'm here. So that's a bit about what I do in Sierra Leone. I also live in Ghana full time. I moved in December 2020. It was what many people call a pandemic inspired move. I worked for a year at Jumia, an e-commerce company based in Ghana. I am an advisor to startups. So I work with Google for startups. I work with MEST and Founders Institute, where I advise their startups on everything from monetizing their content to how to use social media to find their customers. And I also am vice president of business development and Africa expansion at a company called Freestar based in the US, where I'm focused on expanding our footprint on the continent of Africa. And so our guest is going to be joining us in just a moment. He has just recently arrived in Ghana. And so he has been dealing with some of the internet challenges that I have been dealing with. And so you're going to have to bear with us today to make sure we get through this thing. Before I bring him on, though, there is a quick question that came up. The Hope Dealer says, what's the cost of living like? So it depends on what country you're talking about, the Hope Dealer. So in Ghana, I would say the cost of living is obviously less than any major city in the United States, but it all depends on what part of town you live in. If you want to live in a very luxurious building, you can spend, oh, there goes the light. Shout out to Sierra Leone power issues. You can spend anything from, $1,000 to $2,000 to even $3,000 for 3 and 4 bedroom apartments in Ghana. But you can also spend as little as $600 for a 3 bedroom, 3 bathroom apartment, which is what I do. So it really all depends on where you live. That'll determine the cost of living. But in terms of food is much cheaper than it is in the United States. Groceries are much cheaper than they are in the US, especially fruits and vegetables. And so you can expect that, you'll be able to get pretty good pricing on all of those kinds of things. In Sierra Leone, one of the challenges we have is the light does go out. So that might happen a few times throughout this live because it's been happening all day today. This area of town has been experiencing light issues, but we do have a generator. So if it's out for longer than 2 minutes, the person's going to go turn on the generator and we'll be back live. All right, so Manelik is on and says, good evening. What's up, Manelik? Can you give me a thumbs up so that I know you can hear me? I haven't gotten any thumbs up from any of the YouTube folks that you guys can hear me. And the Hope Dealer, I hope that was helpful to you. King Many 420 says, don't forget haircuts are hella cheap. Yes, King Many is right. Haircuts are very, very cheap. You definitely can expect to spend about $10, maybe $15 if it's like a really high-end place. If that. It's actually less than that because the prices haven't gone up, at least the last time I got a haircut, even though in Ghana, even though the value of the CD had decreased. All right, cool. All right, so the YouTube folks say they can hear me. So our guest today, and I want to say this again. So last week, you guys might have joined. We got a good 8 minutes of content last week before I lost data, and I wasn't able to finish our live with our guest. So we brought him back. He's going to talk to us about the Sound of Accra podcast and some of the folks that he has and the new season that he has coming up. So you guys can definitely check that out if you want to know more about what it's like for people living and moving to Ghana and building businesses in Ghana. But let me do a quick introduction, read his intro and his bio really quickly before I bring him on. So today we're talking to Adrian about how he started his podcast. It's with top founders, creators, and entrepreneurs from Ghanaian interest or heritage, and it gives listeners leaves listeners with meaningful takeaways to apply in life, business, and career. And it really helps you to understand the context of building businesses and being thought leaders on the continent of Africa, in particular, Ghana. And so the Sound of Accra was founded by Adrian Daniels in January of 2020 in the airport residential area. It was conceived in late 2019. And it really was a brainchild of Adrian after a series of failed projects. He actually started some networking events and in online magazine blogs, etc. And he established, they basically were established to showcase the Ghanaian experience. And it was providing a resource for anyone interested in entrepreneurship, business, and or living and visiting Ghana. And because those things did not fully pan out as planned, he was able to pivot and start the podcast. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Adrian Daniels. Adrian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How, can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect. I've just had to switch from my MacBook to my phone because I'm sitting right by the Wi-Fi and it's still not working as fast. I've just got in the crowd. I need to up the speed of my internet hotspot, but phones, we thank God for phones. So here I am. So here's a podcaster doing an interview without a podcast mic, but it's fine. As long as you guys can hear me, that's what matters.
That's all that matters. And we can hear you loud and clear. So that's great. And just for those joining on Instagram Live, I do want to remind you that if you want to see our guests live, just jump over to the pinned link here. And you'll be able to see our guest, Adrian. So you're not just hearing his voice and seeing me, but I wanted to show you that the link is pinned there so you can get to the live and watch on YouTube. Okay, great. So Adrian, I know we did a little bit of this last Monday before we were cut off, but there are folks who are joining today that didn't get a chance to hear this. So I think we can go back over some of this. So let's start a little bit with your background, right? I know that you obviously hail from the UK, but can you give us a little bit about your background, your relation to Ghana, and your career background, so everybody has a little bit of an understanding of who you are, and then we can talk about how you got to this point with the Sound of Accra podcast.
You still there?
Yes.
Are you still there?
I am still here. It sounds like you lost our audio.
Am I still? You can still hear me?
I can. So let me repeat the question because I think you lost audio for a little while. You didn't hear what I said. I was saying, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your connection to Ghana,
You can hear me.
and your career background.
Okay, must be me again. It must be me. Must be me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect.
Okay. So I was asking about your background,
All right.
your connection to Ghana and your career background.
Sure. So my connection to Ghana is I'm Ghanaian. I was born in London, but I am Ghanaian. I lived in Ghana for a few years when I was here as a kid. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yes.
Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, sure. So I was born in London, but I lived in Ghana as a kid. So I went to school there, Morning Star and Cantonments. So I had very early exposure to Ghana. Of course, my parents are Ghanaian. They live here as well, and they've been involved in their own businesses and things like that for many years now. So um, just being around them for many years has always kind of got me more intrigued in Ghana. My father's quite patriotic. He loves his country, and
It looks like we lost Adrian again. He just got to Ghana this week, and so he's working through some technical issues with Wi-Fi. I will tell you guys know who follow this channel, you'll know that I have four, count them, four Wi-Fi connections in Ghana. So I have Vodafone on my phone, I have MTN at home and Vodafone fiber at home, and then I have a Vodafone MiFi, and I have a Surfline MiFi. So I have a ton of different options in terms of how to get online, because sometimes one goes down and you need to use another. And even in Sierra Leone, I have a couple different options as well. I use Google Fi on my phone, and I use Orange on my laptop. So bear with us for a second while Adrian works to get back online. He's having a few technical difficulties there, but he'll be back in a moment. But in the meantime, those of you who are catching us from Instagram Live, just go ahead and hit that link that's pinned there, and you can join the YouTube Live so that you can see live on YouTube, and you can actually see our guest when he's back on. So Adrian is, as for those of you who are just joining, Adrian is the founder of the Sound of Accra podcast. And so we're going to talk today about some of the people he's interviewed, what it's been like, all the things that come along with starting a podcast and being someone who's a podcaster with content from the continent of Africa. So Adrian is back. So let me bring him back on the stream. So Adrian, can you hear me? Looks like there's a bit of a delay. So there's still a bit of a delay. Okay, there you go. It looks like you caught up a little bit. Adrian, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You're back.
Can you hear me? There's a bit of delay, probably, but okay, great.
Awesome. So feel free to pick up where you left off.
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We lost him again. Yeah. So, there he is. He's back. He's back.
Okay.
Let's see.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud
Just
and
another
clear.
check.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Yeah, so I mean, when I was young, my early exposure to Ghana was living in Ghana in the early 2000s as a kid. So I went to Morning Star School in Cantonments, lived in Ghana for 3 years, and went to Ghana, for holidays in the early 2000s. And that for me was my early exposure to Ghana. You understand? But of course, fast forward to the 2010s, I would come to Ghana on a regular basis. So I would come here for holidays, and of course, my parents, my family, my parents live here, and they've got businesses and things like that. So I've got cousins out here, etc., living here that moved to Ghana, etc. So all of these things combined would expose me to different things and would give me ideas. And yeah, so I think for me, I see the turning point for me was 2016, not only in my career but also in terms of Ghana. Are we still live? Are we still live? Are we still live?
We are, yeah. We lost you for
Great.
2 seconds, but you're back.
Okay.
You were saying
Yeah.
not a
2016.
turning point in your career.
Yeah. So
And
yeah. So let me continue. So 2016 was a turning point for me and also Ghana in general, because that was the year when I visited Ghana, when I started to see companies like KFC, Vodafone's, like these multinational companies set themselves. I started to kind of pick up. So I've been involved in the past 10 years in the digital transformation industry. So whether that's been in the area of education, e-commerce, marketing, startups, running my own startup, working in telecommunications, you name it, right? I mean, I've been in digital transformation for the past 10 years, and I've worked in various departments: sales, marketing, commercials, business development, strategy, product, you name it. So as I saw Ghana kind of like really progress from 2016 onwards, of course, my career was also progressing around the same time. And yeah, I mean, kind of like fast forward to like kind of like how the podcast started. So I would say 2019, again, that's another pivotal year, the year of return. What happened was I was running these networking events on 2018 and 2019 called Diaspora Connect in the airport residential area. And the first one I ran, only like 5 people turned up to the event. But then the second one I ran in 2019, 25 people turned up. And out of those 25 people, 2 of those attendees became my guests on my podcast, which is quite cool. And then also I realized that this networking opportunity, just networking once a month, wasn't enough for me in the midst of that of the diaspora. Because for me, I started this networking event because I felt there wasn't enough networking events to take advantage of the amount of diaspora that was available in the country. Like a massive global networking party, which is what I wanted to do. I saw the likes of Freedom Jacob Caesar. He was having global networking parties. You had Idris Elba. You had that Anthony, African American actor guy, and you had football players, Jerome Boateng, people like that would turn up to the networking party. And I was thinking, that gave me ideas. Look, thinking I wanted to kind of like have all these networking events going on and really just taking advantage of the diaspora being in town, because it's not every day that you have the whole world in Ghana. So for me, that wasn't enough. So I turned to a blog, london2accra.com. That project failed. Are we still live?
Lost Adrian, but it looks like he's jumping back in.
Yeah.
So you're saying it wasn't enough for you. We lost you right when you said it wasn't enough for you.
Yeah, so it wasn't enough for me.
Gotta love the West African Wi-Fi challenges. So this right here is a big opportunity for us to really improve the internet quality. These are challenges that you see a lot actually in West Africa. Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone in particular. We've seen these challenges. I worked for a company based in Ghana, and one of the things that we noticed is like we'd get on Zoom calls or Google Chats, and everyone would turn off their cameras, right? And that's one of our challenges here is the connectivity is not the greatest. There's a number of different things that have to do with it, right? You know, a lot of times the wires are above ground, not underground, you know, and so it leads to some challenges sometimes connecting. But we got Adrian back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where did you last hear me talk? What did you last hear me say?
You were just repeating yourself, and then we lost you right again. So, and then we.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I pivoted from networking events to an online resource magazine, if you will. So like a how-to website called London to Accra. And the reason why I called it London to Accra is because I bought the domain London to Accra because London to Accra is actually one of the most popular, the most profitable flight routes for British Airways and maybe other airlines. So I thought I'll be able to capitalize on that traffic by buying the domain London to Accra and turning it into a website. So
Nice.
that project failed.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear. Still hear you.
Great. I'll be making these checkpoints because I know I'm going in and out.
No
And
worries.
then of course I had this light bulb moment where I was taking notice to all of the content that was taking place on YouTube. Like there were so many creators creating content for YouTube. You know, you can list a whole bunch of names right now. What Maya to Vanessa Camby, you name it, right? And I just thought to myself, wait a minute, like there's so many people doing YouTube content, but then what about podcasts? Because I've always been an avid podcast listener since 2010, and I just had a random light bulb moment, thinking, wait a minute, there's no one doing anything about Ghana in the podcast space. This could be a very interesting space to tap into. So I decided to tap into the podcast space, and I was listening to a program. Somebody said the sound of something, and I thought, okay, that would be a great idea for a podcast. So going back to my past career experience, so at university, I used to run my own radio show called In the Mix. So we used to play R&B and hip hop music. We used to have live performances. We used to have like guests come on the show. You know, we'll do all types of competitions, and I used to create content for the radio so that we can play live on the air and things like that. So I was able to take some of the past experience I had in radio and also overseeing a radio station at my university, being on a committee as head of music. So I was able to bring all this experience onto the podcast. Experience at radio, and also being a music student and a music technology student, being able to use all of this to my advantage to create a podcast, as well as my intrigueness or my and the development of Africa. Just putting this all together, I think this is what created the podcast. Someone like my father, he's always been interested in just moving the country forward. And I've been surrounded by all of these stories of what entrepreneurs and creators are doing on the continent. So one example I'll give to you is the CNN African Voices. So there's a show called CNN African Voices, and my dad will always drum it into me. Adrian, come and watch this. Adrian, you got to see this. You got to see this. So I would always watch it, and then that would always kind of give me ideas and expose me to what the great things that entrepreneurs and creators are doing on the continent. And the Sound of Accra podcast was born January 2020, just before COVID. So you wouldn't look, if you look at the stats, a lot of people started podcasts when COVID started and during the lockdowns, but I started it before. So I wasn't one of those people that did it for the sake.
Right.
So are we still live? Still live?
Yeah. So you were saying you started before lockdown. We caught you right when you said you started it before.
Yeah. So I started through before lockdown. So January 2020, after the networking event I did. So I'm going back and forth a little bit. So Diaspora Connect, after I did the 2019 Diaspora Connect event in Airport Residential in January, I decided I'm going to start my podcast. So one of my guests, my first ever guest came from the networking event. His name is Bontu Anyate. He's an award-winning screenwriter, author, etc. He's been involved in some of the top TV shows in Ghana and things like that, and he's written some top books, etc. National Theatre, you name it. So he was my first guest, and I'll never forget this moment where I was in an Uber going to the airport residential area, and I had to think of a catchy hook to reel people into the podcast. Like, I know what the podcast was going to be about, but I need the people to get what the podcast was going to be about in a few seconds, like in the moments, like instantly. People had to understand what it was about. So I remember being in Uber, just being on Google Notes, just trying to come up with something, a catchy tagline. And then I came up with, we chat with colorful creatives. And the reason why I said colorful is because Africa is full of vibrance, it's full of color. Do you understand? If you look at your logo, Joanna's, your logo is full of color. You understand? So we chat with colorful creatives and entrepreneurs from a Ghanaian heritage or interest, whatever. And then I remember when I put out the first episode, which is still one of my most popular episodes, hundreds of downloads. I remember when someone listened, because I'm also part of a community called Young Ghanaian Professionals, UK.
Okay.
So it's like a 400, 500 plus strong community. We have a WhatsApp group as well. When I dropped the link of the first ever episode, people were saying those first few seconds are the reason why I continue to listen. Because people realized that this kind of content didn't really exist in this space. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. So this kind of content didn't really exist, you were mentioning.
Yeah. I mean, so it was a unique space I tapped into. So yeah, there were interviews about entrepreneurs. There were interviews. Okay, I'm back.
All right, we lost you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. We don't have your video. Oh, we lost his audio. Really quickly, while we wait for him to come, I see Anne-Marie Harding joined. YOA joined. Hey, what's up? She's the one who actually got me in touch with Adrian in the first place, and put me in touch with Adrian from Sound of Accra. So shout out to Yao for helping out on that. All right, cool. Adrian, you're back.
Can you hear me? Am I back? Loud. Great, I'm back. All right, so
he's back, and then we lost him again. We got you. I think we're getting him back again.
And creatives. So sorry. So there were interviews showcasing entrepreneurs and creatives from Ghana on YouTube, but there wasn't a.
By the way, in the meantime, those of you who are on Instagram Live, I see people keep joining on the Instagram Live. There is a link pinned there in the comments. You can click that link if you want to join the YouTube Live so you can see our guest. Otherwise, you'll just hear his voice as he comes back, but you won't be able to see him. So totally up to you if you want to just kind of listen in and watch me watch the screen. But I did want to let you guys know who are watching on Instagram that there's a link there pinned, so you can join us on the pinned link. So yeah, in the meantime, I did want to show you guys really quickly the Sound of Accra Podcast page, in case we don't get Adrian back. Okay, there he is. Adrian, you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about this, guys. Third world problems. I'm sorry about this. So where was I? Yeah, so basically the podcast. So yeah, once I put the link of my first ever episode into on WhatsApp, once I shared that link, everybody was going crazy and people loved it. And then that gave me the momentum to just do one episode after the other. And it just started to become a thing,
Nice. And you just gave me an idea. I think I need to do some version of that for young Sierra Leonean professionals. I don't know if we have a group like that, but we definitely need to. We have our own small disparate little groups, but I do want to pull all of us together. So I love that idea. Definitely stealing that. Okay, cool. So on that note, right? So you did mention how you got to the podcast and how it started to do almost immediately. You started getting a ton of downloads from the beginning.
Hmm.
What exactly is the nature of the podcast, right? Who are you interviewing? What are you trying to get from them through this interview process when you're talking to them?
Yeah, so the nature of the podcast is focused around founders, creators, entrepreneurs. So those three types of people. So they're either Ghanaian natives or they're Ghanaian diasporans, or they're people that have a strong interest in Ghana. So, for example, I had someone on the podcast who um, runs a social media business in the US. They have like 1 million followers or something, and she was in Ghana during the year of return periods because she was on holiday, and she was also looking at some business opportunities. And she also came to my
Just want to shout out Jerry
am I still
Campbell
live?
from New York. Yes, you are live. You're back. You're back. Hey, Jerry.
Great. Sorry about this, guys. Sorry about this, guys.
You were saying that
trying.
you had a person with a social media following of over 1 million followers.
Hmm.
Who I think you were saying she
Yeah,
joined one of your networking events. Is that I think that's where you were going.
correct. That's correct. Yeah, she's not Ghanaian, but she had a strong interest in Ghana, so she's still qualified to come on the show as well. So we brought her on the show in season 1, and that was a crazy episode. I mean, she was talking about how she almost got killed and things like that, but also she was talking about some of the business that she was doing. Yeah, so I mean, so the focus is founders, entrepreneurs, creatives from the Ghanaian diaspora, or who are based natively here in Ghana, or who are actual Ghanaian natives. So the whole idea is to showcase global Ghanaian excellence and to really ride the wave of this craze of Ghanaians, of people being interested in Ghanaian culture. Just trying to tap into that and really just focus on that, but just focusing on entrepreneurs and creators. So whether it's people who are like artists, or people who launch platforms online, it could be people who have their own products.
All right, so Adrian will be back in a moment, but in the meantime, I just want to let those who are following and joining us from Instagram, if you want to see our guest, there is a link that is pinned here in the comment section. So just click on the pinned link and it'll take you to the YouTube live so you can watch live on YouTube. As we mentioned, we are talking to Adrian Daniels. He is the founder and CEO of the Sound of Accra podcast. And what he's been doing is kind of taking us through what led up to starting this podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about who he's had on and, kind of what the purpose of the podcast is. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I am also looking forward to being a guest on the podcast at some point in time in the near future. But in the meantime, while we wait for Adrian to get back on fully, I did want to share with you guys what the homepage of the site looks like. So, his podcast is on all major podcast platforms. So if you want to check it out, I'll show you here in a quick second. The podcast. Let me share my other screen. So this is the website so the website is thesoundofaccra.com. And so here you can find out ways to listen. There's video and audio in some cases, right? So you see these videos here. There's a trailer for season 3, which we're going to get into in a moment. So everything you need to know about the podcast you could find. Many of you told me I need to speak to this guy right here, Tim Swain, and I at some point I have to get in touch with him. But yeah, so you'll see that he's had a ton of different people on. And that's actually what I wanted to get into next. So I'm going to bring Adrian back on because it looks like he's back. Adrian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. There's a bit of a delay, but I wanted to ask you about who you've had on. We talked a lot about what led to it and how that kind of one of your two early guests. But I think it might be good to do a little bit of a deeper dive into who else has been on the podcast. So do you want to go through some of the list of names that you've had? I have some of them if you want me to like put them up on the screen, or if you have some by memory.
If you have them, you can put them on this. You can put them on the screen, or you can even go through guest list as well. If you
let's go through the website. Let's go through guest list.
If you click on guest list, it probably isn't. I mean, it's probably one or two guests missing, but apart from that, all of the guests are on there. But it's probably one or two guests missing from the seasons. And I also have another podcast. I have a variety of podcast segments which we can talk about hopefully during this. But one or two on that particular. We back. Oh, we back.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was saying, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go for it.
Yeah. So the website is being refreshed completely for season 4. So.
All right, so we lost Adrian's audio for a second, but here's some of the guests. So the guest I think that he mentioned is Aneta Bena. Well, actually, no, that's somebody who is Ghanaian. I'm just looking at that name, what's Ghanaian. But you can see quite a few folks, and you did it by season. Season 3, season 2, season 1. So you were saying, I feel free to pick back up where you left off.
Yeah, that's fine. So what I was saying is that the guests, some of the guests that you can see on the guest list, there will be a few missing because you only see the ones that I've done but for seasons on the guest list. But we're updating the website for season 4, so we're gonna have a completely brand new website in time for season 4, where you see all of the guests on there. But I'm happy to talk about different guests that we've had on the show.
Well, yeah, I think some of the notable guests is like Tim Swain. He has a quite a growing YouTube platform, right? And he does a lot of interviews and talks to a lot of people. So that's one person. I feel like you've spoken to the guy who founded I Mensa Park, right? I'm sorry, his name is now escaping me. Tony, is his name Tony?
Kofi Anku, yes. So I interviewed Kofi Anku before I came. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go for
it. Can you hear me? Looks like I'm kicked. Okay, great. Yeah, so Kofi Anku, that's the one you're talking about. The one. He's one of the partners over at I Mensa Park. So I had an interview with him just before I came to Ghana. So that will be released during season 4. I've spoken to. We've also got a few other really cool guests from season 4 as well. We have Maurice Awad. He's the founder of Ivy Properties, and he's one of the pioneers for Airbnb in Ghana. So he'll be showcased in season 4 as well. And then you also have from other seasons, because I don't want to give the whole season 4 guest list away.
Sure.
But because we're gonna have the trailer out tomorrow. Trailer for season 4 is out tomorrow, guys. By the way, it's gonna be out tomorrow.
Nice.
Am I still live?
Still live, yes. We're looking forward to the trailer. I think we lost his audio for just a second, but you guys can see the list here. So you guys could just check it out. You can see, and you know what? Let me drop the link in the comments. Freddie B is in Ghana. Shout out to Freddie B. I see you here. What's up, Freddie B? What's going on, man? He's experiencing Ghana for the first time. I know Freddie through a mutual friend in New York City. So he's out in Ghana right now. He's New York. He's been in New York for quite a while. I'm not sure if you're a New York native, but we met a while back in New York through a mutual friend. So he's in Ghana right now at the moment. So yeah, he's been exploring and has been keeping me abreast of how it's been. All right, cool. So Adrian, I think we got you back. It looks like we're getting you back now. Yes, we got you back. Adrian, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you were just kind of going through some of your guests, right?
yeah, I was going through some of the guests, you know, so we got different.
Okay, we were losing Adrian's
My back.
audio. There we go. Adrian, you back?
My back.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yes, you're back.
Okay. We've also had Samuel Brooksworth from Remotely. So he's the guy behind Africa's fastest growing virtual assistance company.
Yes.
And that 6-7 figures or something like that.
All right. Well, wait for Adrian to get back. Sorry. Go ahead, Adrian. You were saying?
Yeah. So I also spoke to Samuel Brooksworth from Remotely. So Africa's fastest growing virtual assistance company. So they're doing very, very well in terms of the outsourcing space in Africa. You know, services like Fiverr, you know, they are.
All right. So real quickly, Freddie B is being
countries in the West
is being welcomed. And Freddie B, sorry. So okay, you're a Nashville native, but you spent 10 years in New York. You're loving Accra, especially the exchange rate. We did talk about that. You already want to come back. He already wants to come back to Ghana. Yeah, unfortunately, Freddie, you and I are not going to overlap in your time and my time by the time I get to Ghana, but we'll have to exchange notes. I want to hear from you what it was like, and maybe I can even have you on to tell your experience in Ghana. I'd love to have you tell the group what that experience has been like for you. But Adrian, you're back. So sorry, you were just mentioning some of the folks that you had on. Remotely is something that I've actually used, and friends of mine I put them in touch with it. So I think it's really dope that it's Ghana bred, and it's really been helpful for getting people jobs on the continent and remote work. So that's really cool to know that the person who founded it is Ghanaian.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, British Ghanaian. Yeah. We've also had Darren Bonds. He's like a serial entrepreneur from Ghana. And he's been the man that's worked closely with Freedom Jacob Caesar on some of the top real estate projects in Ghana. So like the #1 Oxford Street, Kwale's residence, Bel Air Crest, so some of the most popular, hotels and real estate projects. He's been the man behind it as well. So we've had some very, very popular guests come on as well. We've even had Hollywood actors. So in season 2 finale, we had Kevin Burton. Am I back?
You're back. Yes.
Great. We even had Kevin Burton. He's like a 5-time world champion kickboxer, Hollywood actor. He's been in movies like The Fifth Element and stuff like that. And he's also an author.
Okay.
He's also an author. He came out of a book called, I think, The Heart of an African Champion. This was 2 years ago, and we did a live season 2 finale with him, which was emotional. We had calls all over the world, which was a fantastic show. We've had Consume Shop, their 60-minute grocery delivery service here in Ghana. They're competing with the likes of Jumia and Globo and Bolt Food, people like that. Okay. We've had a whole bunch of people. We've had Kirsty. Also,
well, wait for Adrian to get back. Oh, go ahead, Adrian. Sorry. Yeah, I can hear you. You're back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we've also had Kirsty Kwarting. She's the founder of the Nana Project. TEDx speaker, and she's families. As
with the internet in West Africa, we have to learn the essence of patience. Patience is something that we've had to learn being in West Africa and dealing with the internet challenges. I have so much more patience than I've ever had in my entire life. You would not believe the level of patience I have. But Adrian, you're back. We can hear you now. Go. Oh, we lost him again.
I'm back.
I think he's coming back though. But yeah, I mean, look, it's just the nature of the beast, right? Like this is this is what we know the issues to be, and we just kind of got to roll with the punches, right? It is what it is. But yeah.
Am
So
I back
Adrian, we
yet?
got you
Am I
back.
back?
Yeah, we got you back.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we've had so many guests, man. I mean, there's just been so many. But yeah, I think I've mentioned some of the biggest ones that we've had. We've had so many, but we have some bigger ones coming on season 4. So you guys can look out for the trailer tomorrow. It's going to be crazy. And in Accra, right here, I'm going to be shooting season 5, and we've got some absolutely phenomenal guests coming on. You know, some more real estate developers who are doing some amazing things here, who have asked me to interview them, and who are launching some hotels and some brand new developments, you know, across Accra. It's going to be an exclusive. We're getting exclusives now, so I'm looking forward to
Nice.
showcasing that. But we've interviewed a whole host of people. So you name the.
And guys, if anyone's joining from Instagram Live, just click on the pin link there. You can join the YouTube Live, and you guys can watch live, so you can see our guest, Adrian. And for those of you who are just joining, we are talking to Adrian Daniels. He is the founder of the Sound of Accra podcast, where he interviews the best and brightest and colorful creatives from Ghana. Whether you are a Ghanaian or of Ghanaian descent, or you have interest in Ghana and you're building in Ghana some sort of business, he is interviewing them. So on that note, so Adrian, you were saying, you were mentioning some of your guests, and I actually did have a question for you on that note. I wanted to know from you, if you can hear me, who was one of your more interesting guests that you've had on the podcast? For whatever reason you want to describe as the most interesting. Do you have one, or your favorite guest? Either one.
Am I still live?
You are.
Okay, so I'll say the most interesting guest was that Darren Bond. He achieved so much. I mean, he came to Ghana in the year, I believe,
So we lost Adrian's audio again.
during the interview. He was absolutely phenomenal. Um,
So we lost Adrian's audio again. We'll bring him back on in a moment. But again, guys, if you're watching on Instagram Live, there's a pin link there in the comments. You can just go to that link so that you can catch us live. And just to kind of get back to some of the comments while we wait for Adrian to get his audio back. Freddie B was just thanking YOA for welcoming him, and he said, "Yeah, for sure, I'm down. Whatever you need, you helped me a lot." Of course, yeah, I'd love to have you on. Freddie B TV, as his name says, is a host and personality. So I'd love to talk to him from his experience about what his experience has been like in Ghana. From someone who has made the trip with some family members. It'd be interesting to hear from you what that experience was like. It looks like we have Adrian back, so let's bring Adrian back on. Yeah, Adrian, I think we can hear you. I think you're back. You were just talking about your most interesting guest.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, cool. Look, if I knew my internet quality was not going to be as good, I would have done this in the office, honestly. So I do apologize on behalf, to all of your listeners. So yeah, what I was saying is that my most interesting guest was Darren Bond, the real estate entrepreneur. The reason why I've lost you again. Are you there, Joe?
No, we can hear you. We can hear you. You're still going.
Joe, are you there?
Yes. We were able to still hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Cool. I would say my most interesting guest was Darren Bonds because his story is just incredible. Oh, great, interesting. So my most interesting guest was Darren Bond because he came to Ghana pretty much empty-handed around the year 2010, and then 10 years later, he pretty much achieved everything that there was to achieve in Ghana. So it's a pretty interesting story just to hear him talk about that. And that was the season 3 finale guest, and that episode did fantastically well. I think my favorite guest was 100K for Ghana. 100K for Ghana, they're like a group of
Okay.
individuals, impact makers, entrepreneurs, etc. Mainly British. So you got so it's founded and is ran by Enoch Antwi and Samuel Osei. So they're like these British Ghanaians who are making a big impact in Ghana. So the 100K for Ghana basically is like this impact-based charity where they basically rally up funds and they rally up resources and they rally up the talents and the giftings of the diaspora, and they use this together um, to create infrastructures and factories and different vehicles that can be used to help the people in Ghana. So, for example, going out to the Volta region and creating kente weaving factories, or whether it's building schools, whether it's building shelter for certain people, whether it's having medical pop-up medical pop-up stores for like doctors to administer healing to different people in across Ghana. They've done some fantastic work, and those two guests were just so full of energy, and they were so passionate about the project that they were doing, and it just gave me almost goosebumps, like that. My podcast was around for such a time as this, where I'm able to showcase people. It's all well and good showcasing, the flashiest entrepreneurs and the most successful people in the country. But for me, I think the most impactful thing is being able to showcase people like Country K for Ghana, who actually have a purpose behind what they're doing. So people like 100K for Ghana, and even Consume Shop. Consume Shop was an interesting one. I saw them at the Startups for Ghana event last year, and you had people like Samuel Brooksworth and Survey 54 and Tap Tap Send who were all present, etc. And there was a startup pitch that took place there, and Consume Shop was there to do a startups pitch. But somehow the week after, they found out about me. I got a random email out of nowhere. I had a Zoom call with them just to make sure that they were up to quality for the podcast. And as a result, I got them on the show, and they just told me the story about how they've lived in different countries from Germany to America, and they were both working successful careers in the tech industry, and then they decided to quit their jobs and to relocate to Ghana to start this 60-minute grocery delivery service across Ghana, because they felt, just like me, that they felt there was a gap in the market, and they felt they had the skill sets and the resources and the talents around them to be able to deliver such a service to the Ghanaian community to make an impact. So, some of these have been some of my my personal favorite interviews, because it's more aligned with purpose and fulfilling a mission, a vision, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. And I think on that note, I wanted to ask you, what is something you've learned, or what have you learned most about doing this podcast? Um, what have you learned most about Ghana, I would say, doing this podcast?
I would say that when you think you know Ghana, you have to think again. That Ghana is full of surprises.
Okay.
It's full of surprises, and you constantly need to be humble. You constantly need to keep your eyes open, and you
Mm,
constantly need to be innovating, because one day a restaurant could be open, a few weeks later it can be closed. Am I still here?
Yeah. So you were saying
Am I
one day it
still
could
here?
be open, the next week it could be closed, and then we lost you for a second.
Yo, Joe.
It's a bit of a
Joe.
delay.
Joe.
Yep.
Am I still
We can
live?
hear you. Yes. Okay, we lost Adrian's audio and video for a moment, so we'll give him a second to get back into it. But that was such a good point, right? Once you think you know Ghana, think again, right? I mean, I think it's like I think people think of countries outside the United States as a monolith. And so, like, when you think about the US, right, just think about this. In the US, you have, and I always use like rap music as an example for me, right? Someone who's been an avid listener of it since, let's say, the early 90s, right? You have Atlanta rap, you have Houston rap, you have LA, San Francisco, you have, Tennessee, you have New York, and you have all these different cultures within one country, right? And so, if you can imagine, the music is different, the people are different, and so you can think of Ghana in that same way, right? It's not a monolith. Ghana as a country has a number of different cultures, 88 different tribes to be exact, and 13 different languages recognized by the federal government there, right? So that gives you an idea of how different the different folks can be. Generally, culture can have some, kind of has a way of permeating through all the different groups, but there are differences between the different groups for sure. And there are different tribes that have migrated to Ghana too. And so that point that Adrian had just made, like it really is true that once you think you know Ghana, think again, because it is very different than you think. YMCMB 1955, shout out to you. I see you here on the Instagram live. Join us on YouTube. The link is there if you want to join us on YouTube as well. I think I might have Adrian back, so let me see if I can bring him on the screen. Looks like we lost him again. Freddie B is asking if Adrian is from Accra. That's a good question. We'll have to ask him that when he comes back on. His parents are obviously Ghanaian, but I don't know if they're from Accra. He said, "Oh, I'll just turn the music up. I'm at Honeysuckle in Osu." Yeah. So by the way, guys, Honeysuckle in Osu is one of the spots to go to. There's a couple of honeysuckles. I like the Honeysuckle in Osu. It's a vibe. It's a vibe, and there's a couple like restaurants nearby too. So you can kind of like go back and forth between restaurants. There's a Mexican restaurant right next to it. And then what I like about Honeysuckle is they have that upstairs area, and they have like a kind of a VIP room in the back there too. I watched the Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder fight there. We watched a couple of UFC fights there. It's actually a really, really, really cool spot. So yeah, definitely recommend it. There's also another honeysuckle that is pretty busy. There's a couple of pretty busy honeysuckles. There's another one at the ANC Mall, and then there's a third one that I've been to. I can't remember exactly where it is. I can't remember what part of town it's in. I don't know if it's in Cantonments or not, but maybe it's in Laboni. But that one is also a fun one to be at too. So yeah, Freddie B is getting the full Ghana experience right now. Honeysuckle, or at least the full Accra experience. Being at Honeysuckle and hearing the music is definitely fun. And in terms of Osu too, there's plenty of places in Osu to go, by the way. So those of you who are watching and who are going to be going to Ghana in December, there is a lot to do. And one of the things I'll mention here is that there are places that aren't open the entire year, but only open up in December. So there are like rooftops of certain buildings that are just empty rooftops normally, and they become spots that people go to in December. So there's kind of like pop-up party places, basically pop-up clubs, pop-up lounges that show up in December, just for the diaspora that come to town. So let me bring Adrian back on. Adrian, can you yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know
So
what is going on.
there was a question if you were from Accra or not. Where are you from in Ghana?
Where am I from? As in my actual kind of like
Your
family
tribe.
is from.
Yeah, family
Tribe.
tribe.
So I'm Fanti.
And Fanti's the north? Where's Fanti? Where's the Fanti tribe from?
Central region.
Mm.
Central region, Western region.
Central region.
Things yes, more Central region, yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah. So just real quick, Freddie B is saying that Isaac, his bartender, said that he has served me before. Yeah, I've been to the and I think I know Isaac too. I've been to the Osu honeysuckle a few times, more than a few times. So yes, yeah, Isaac. What's up, Isaac? Shout out to you. Yeah. Okay, cool. So
Great
Adrian,
scenes. Great scenes. Great
oh
scenes
yeah,
at the honeysuckle, Osu. The Ghana game where I was there, and when the Ghana played Portugal, fantastic scenes at the honeysuckle, Osu. Gotta go there,
oh
guys. Gotta
yeah,
go there.
great place to watch sports.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So to close this out, I just have a couple more questions for you as we're wrapping this up. Um, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start a podcast and to do that kind of content, especially around people that are from the continent of Africa? Any thoughts that you have for someone who would be starting a podcast um, on the continent?
Oh my gosh, am I still there? Am I still there?
Yeah, you are. You are. Did you catch the
Okay.
question?
Okay. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, few tips. So, one, you definitely want to start a podcast around something that you're already knowledgeable in to an extent and have
Okay.
some kind of passion for. So that's one. Number two is you want to find a niche. You want to find a niche that hasn't really been tapped into before, or if it has been done before, it has to be something that you can do a lot better, so that you can kind of get all the attention coming to you rather than somebody else. Okay. Number three, statistically,
Number three sounded like it's about
my
to
back.
important points. You were saying number three.
Statistically, yeah, number three in podcasting. I think it's 75% of podcasters, I think, don't get past episode number 7 in podcasts.
Really?
So if you're gonna do podcasting, remember, yeah, 100%. Do your research. Most people
Wow.
do not get past episode 7 in a podcast, right? I've done 100. I've done 102. I've done 100. So see you at 100, right? Let's see you can make 100 first. But anyway, let's see you can make even 10 first. But yeah, most people don't get past episode 7 because what happens is people start the podcast. The first podcast they will do the promotion, whatever, right? So friends and family support you. Outsiders will support you that haven't heard of it, but that maybe find it, whatever. But then after maybe the first few episodes, you'll notice that the momentum from the first episode to the second, there's like a second, third, fourth. There's a huge there is a huge drop off, which only leaves the true listeners behind. So you have to then stick it out so you can find your tribe and find your community that is willing to stick through your content and loves your content. And if you're not willing to do that, you may never be able to find that community or tribe that you're looking for. So it's important to stick out, and it's important to know that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. This podcast thing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I mean, I know people that have gone past episode 1,000. It's crazy, literally, personally. I know people that personally gone past episode 1,000, and they're not even Joe Rogan or anything like that. So you have to be in it to win it. You have to be in it for the long run. And finally, our final one is just focus on giving value, and the money will follow. Focus on giving value, and money will follow. I'm only now starting to kind of properly monetize the podcast through podcast courses, podcast training, agency stuff that people come into me because of this podcast. People kind of see me as like a go-to person for a lot of things when it comes to like business in Ghana and stuff like that. So I get like referrals through that way. And then also I've now come up with a sponsorship pack where brands who can fit in with the podcast are now willing to pay bucks to put their brands in front of my audience. So focusing, giving value, and then the money will follow later on. That's the 5 tips I'll give for the meantime.
Nice, nice. And I think the one tip that you mentioned about, most people don't even get past the 7 episodes. I see the same thing with YouTube, right? You get a ton of momentum the first couple of videos, and then once you start to see that fall off, you start to see people falling off on the idea of continuing to keep the content going. It's hard to stay consistent when you don't see instant results the way you want to, especially in today's day and age.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All very good advice. Anything I missed? Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to mention to those who are watching and listening?
Not really. I think we've kind of touched upon the key points. I mean, I think for me it's just more announcements that I would want to make.
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, so first announcement is season 4 trailer. All right, great. So first announcement is season 4 trailer should drop tomorrow. So you guys can head over to youtube.com/the Sound of Accra podcast, or just put in the Sound of Accra on YouTube and it will come up. Or you can follow us on Instagram, the Sound of Accra podcast, and you should be able to see the season 4 trailer up by tomorrow, the latest, as I've been promised by my editor. So hopefully that will be there by tomorrow. And then, of course, first episode with season 4 will be out next week. Ya Afori Answer. Our very own Ya Afori Answer should be our first episodes to kick off the season, and should be telling everyone about tourism and travel in Ghana, getting everyone hyped up for Christmas, as usual. And for those of you who are in Accra, do follow us and stay up to date with what we're doing, because we are potentially doing an event, our first proper in-person live event in January. So be looking out for that. And we're shooting season 5, right? So I believe December I'll start shooting season 5. So if you feel you guys have what it takes to come on the podcast and deliver massive value, because I only have the best possible guest on season 5. If you feel like you have what it takes to be on season 5, hit us up, info@thesoundofaccra.com, or hit us up on any of the social media platforms, and we'll be looking forward to going through your application and why you think you're a good fit for this show. And if you want to come on the show other than season 5, we have other podcast segments. So we have Africa Roundtable, so that's if you're not from Ghana. Sorry, we tend to group all the different Africans together. Did I lose you?
No, you kind of jumped right back in, maybe like a second after. So you were saying the round table. And
yes, we have Africa Roundtable, where we kind of bring together Africans from around the continent who have something valuable to share. It's more of a compilation episode, like how Joe is doing his live stream. I also do live streams and Q&As and discussions. We also have a conversation with series, which is a standalone interview series outside of the seasons. So for those that maybe missed the seasons or aren't on the seasons, we also have a standalone conversation with series on the show as well, which is usually audio or remote video. That's usually the case. So yeah, we have a variety of podcast segments, and hopefully our brand new website should be able to showcase that a lot better. And those are pretty much the announcements I wanted to make.
Nice. And we'll put all of that in the description. So when the playback is up, you guys can go check all those out. Again, the YouTube channel is also youtube.com/the Sound of Accra Podcast. I don't know how I hadn't already subscribed, but I just subscribed. So while we're live, I am subscribed. I also put a link here in the chat so that you guys can go over and subscribe to it as well, just to make sure you guys are subscribers to the podcast. I'm looking forward to season 5 and catching up on some past seasons and some of those episodes. There's some people there that I definitely want to hear from. So I'm definitely looking forward to to hearing their stories and you know, kind of getting to know a little bit more about what they're doing to get some more inspiration for what I plan to do in Ghana as well. All right, cool. So so we kind of just mentioned where people can find you online.
Absolutely.
So you had something else?
We got to get you on season. Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, when you're back in Accra, hit me up, and we will have a catch up and get you on season 5. We have to get you on the show as well, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. I absolutely am looking forward to being on it. I like to talk, so I'm excited.
Yes,
I'm excited.
I love your stories. I love your stories. I love your vlog, and I want you on the show. So I'm looking forward to having you back in Accra when you are back from your traveling. Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as well. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for doing this, Adrian. I really appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for watching. For those of you who watched on Instagram, I saw a few of you join at the end. There's a link pinned here. You can actually watch the replay. The replay will be here. And if there's anybody who joined late, just go back and watch the replay. The replay will be on YouTube at the same link. So go back and check it. But thanks again for watching. If you like any of this content, or if you want to share with anyone a podcast that they should be listening to about Ghanaian entrepreneurs and movers and shakers pertaining to interest or from Ghanaian heritage, then definitely check out the Sound of Accra podcast. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with anybody you know. And on that, thanks for watching. See you guys all on the next video.